They entered the palace dressed in silk, escorted by guards, and watched by thousands. To the outside world, they were the luckiest women in the empire, chosen by heaven to share the emperor's bed. But once the gates of the Forbidden City closed behind them, their lives no longer belonged to them. What looked like luxury was, in truth, a beautifully decorated cage. In Imperial China, becoming a concubine was not a romantic fate. It was a political decision, a social transaction, and often a silent death sentence for freedom. Girls as young as 13 were selected through palace examinations, judged not only by beauty but by posture, voice, obedience, and even the shape of their hands. Families offered their daughters willingly, believing imperial favor could raise their bloodline forever. Few understood what awaited those girls inside. The palace was a world governed by invisible rules. Every step, every word, every breath followed strict protocol. Concubines ranked below the empress and senior wives, and a woman's entire future depended on her rank, something she could lose as quickly as she gained it. A single rumor, a jealous rival, or one misunderstood glance could end a life of privilege overnight. Their days began before sunrise. Palace maids dressed them in layers of heavy robes, adjusted their hair ornaments, and painted their faces according to strict court fashion. Smiling was controlled. Laughing too loudly was forbidden. Even crying could be punished if it disrupted palace harmony. Every action was observed by servants who reported to higher officials, creating a web of constant surveillance. The emperor, the most powerful man in the world, was also the most distant. Many concubines never saw him even once. Others waited years for a single night of summons. That summons, delivered by eunuchs, was both a blessing and a curse. Being chosen meant favor, but it also meant attention, jealousy, and danger. Rivalry among concubines was brutal. Open conflict was forbidden, so wars were fought in whispers. Poison tea, sabotaged reputations, false accusations, these were the weapons of survival. A woman who gained the emperor's affection became a target. A woman who lost it became invisible. Pregnancy changed everything. Bearing a son could elevate a concubine overnight, transforming her from a disposable figure into a political asset. But it also placed her in extreme danger. Many historical records hint at mysterious miscarriages, sudden illnesses, and unexplained deaths among pregnant concubines. Official histories remain silent, but palace legends tell a darker story. Children seen as threats were often erased before birth. Loneliness was constant. Concubines were forbidden from forming close friendships. Trust was dangerous. Letters to family were censored or never delivered. Leaving the palace, even after the emperor's death, was rarely allowed. Some women spent their entire lives behind palace walls, aging quietly until they became ghosts in silk robes. Even luxury was a form of control. The gold, the jade, the banquets, these were reminders that everything they had came from the emperor, and everything could be taken away. A concubine owned nothing, not even herself. Her body belonged to the throne. Her loyalty was expected without question. As years passed, many concubines lost hope. Youth faded, beauty declined, and with it, relevance. Older concubines were often transferred to remote palace quarters, living in silence, waiting for death. Some turned to religion. Others to madness. A few, according to secret accounts, chose their own end rather than fade into nothingness. From the outside, the Forbidden City glittered like heaven. From the inside, it felt like an endless test, one mistake away from ruin. And the cruelest truth was this: once chosen, there was no escape. The gates that opened to welcome them never opened again. But what happened when the emperor died? Did freedom finally come? Or did the prison tighten its grip even further? If a concubine survived palace rivalries and the passing of youth, she faced a fate even crueler, the death of the emperor. For most women, this moment did not bring freedom. It marked the beginning of a darker imprisonment, one history often refuses to describe. When an emperor died, the palace hierarchy shifted violently. The empress dowager, court officials, and the future emperor decided the fate of the remaining women. Some concubines were ordered to live out their days in isolation, forbidden from ever remarrying, loving, or even speaking freely. Others were forced into lifelong mourning, wearing plain clothes and abandoning all luxury overnight. In earlier dynasties, the fate was far worse. Historical fragments suggest that some concubines were expected to follow the emperor into death, buried alive or forced to commit ritual suicide. Official records describe these acts as honorable devotion, but behind those words lay terror and coercion. Refusal was unthinkable. Even in later dynasties, where such practices declined, punishment took subtler forms. Concubines linked to political enemies were imprisoned or executed under false charges. Others were sent to cold, forgotten palace corners, their names erased from records as if they had never existed. Motherhood offered no guaranteed protection. If a concubine's son lost a power struggle, she fell with him. Mothers watched their children exiled, poisoned, or imprisoned, knowing that a single wrong alliance could doom an entire bloodline. Love, in the palace, was a liability. Some women tried to influence politics from behind the curtain, advising their sons or manipulating court officials. A few succeeded and became legends, but for every success story, dozens vanished without a trace. History celebrates the rare victors and forgets the countless victims. As time passed, the palace became quieter. Former concubines aged in silence, surrounded by memories of a life that once promised everything. They were forbidden to leave, forbidden to remarry, forbidden to return to their families. To the outside world, they were symbols of honor. Inside, they were prisoners of tradition. The psychological toll was immense. Records mention women who spoke to themselves, women who refused food, women who stared at palace walls for days. Depression had no name, but its presence was everywhere. The empire valued obedience over happiness, silence over truth. Why was this erased from history? Because acknowledging it would challenge the image of imperial glory. Chroniclers served the throne, not the truth. The suffering of women was considered insignificant compared to the greatness of emperors. Silk covered scars. Poetry replaced pain. Today, the Forbidden City stands as a tourist marvel. Visitors admire painted ceilings and golden halls, unaware that these walls once echoed with whispered fears and silent cries. The concubines who lived and died there left few traces, no graves, no diaries, no justice. Luxury or prison? For the concubines of Chinese emperors, luxury was the prison. And the prison was so beautiful that history chose not to look inside. Their stories were erased, but they were never unreal.